right, everyone. All right. Yeah. Welcome to today's class. Yeah, we're live, and if you're connected and if you can hear me, please can you just hit the comment section and say hi? I can hear you. Um, can say hello, say anything you want. Right. So just say hi. I can hear you, and please you can invite your friends, invite everyone to join the session. We're live. I'll be going on with a new topic for today. Okay, can you hear me? All right, so I believe everyone can hear me, and I believe you can see my screen. I believe you can see what I have on my screen. So this is a normal code editor, and there are so many of them, but due to flexibility, I've just decided to use this for the class. We'll explore other ones possibly during the project phase of the class. But at this foundation stage, I want to just use this to lay foundation on some basic concepts before diving deep into the advanced aspects of what we're doing. So when we start putting everything together, when we start putting the concepts together, putting everything we've learned together, we're going to use a more advanced editor later on in the class. Okay, so welcome to today's class, and today we'll be discussing JavaScript arrays. You must have heard about JavaScript arrays, or possibly either in JavaScript or in any other programming language. So if you've had experiences on other programming languages, not JavaScript, arrays are concepts that are common in software engineering, not just in JavaScript. And they have the same meaning everywhere. So for whichever programming language you want to use, arrays still mean the same thing. But due to syntax, that's the rules of writing programming languages. There are different ways of representing arrays in different programming languages. So today we'll be focusing on JavaScript arrays, and we'll be discussing and doing some basic implementation with JavaScript arrays. Okay, so let me give you an instance. Let's say you want to have the names of students in a class. Let's say you have 5 students in a class and you want to have their names, just their names. One way to represent it in JavaScript is to have, let's say, a variable that saves the name of each person. So you can have variable 1, variable 2, variable 3, and so on and so forth, representing the names of each person in the class. Okay, so that's one way to do that. Another way we can do that is through arrays, and I will show you these different ways. All right, so let's try the first way. So we say var1 student1, can say for the student1, can say student 2, can say Femi, can say var student 3, can say Ada, var student 4, can say Musa, var student 5. Here we can have Tega. So these are the names of the students in the class. These are the names of the 5 students in the class. So basically, this is just a list of names of students. And for each time we want to have, let's say, an additional name of students, we'll have to create a new variable for that. Well, JavaScript provides a concept that makes this kind of situation easier to represent and work with. And that concept is what we know as arrays, JavaScript arrays. So what are JavaScript arrays? So JavaScript arrays, an array is a way of or a way to store multiple values inside a single variable. Okay, so instead of having multiple variables to save multiple values, we can use a single variable to save multiple values. Okay, and this is what arrays are, or what arrays represent, or what arrays can do. So here, instead of having 5 variables, we would have var students, and then save all the values in this 5 variable into one array, into one variable through the through JavaScript arrays. Okay, so now how do we do this? We're going to define a kind of data type known as arrays, and this is how we do that. We use this block bracket, okay, to do that. So the opening and the closing. Then inside this bracket or inside this box, we put in all the lists of values that we want to have. One is 4, then we separate them with comma. Depending on the data type, you can put objects, you can put numbers, you can put boolean, you can put anything at all inside an array. Okay, separate them, have Adam, Musa, and then we have Tega. Okay, so this is how arrays can be created. So with this now, we have saved these 5 different values inside just a single array, a single variable. This makes our code more cleaner and it looks neater this way, and also it helps to save memory spaces. Instead of creating multiple variables, we're having just one variable containing multiple values, right? So this is what arrays are. And there are different ways we work with arrays. Yeah, we can read an element, and there are different methods that arrays support. Okay, so think of an array like an egg tray. If you have an egg tray, think most egg trays have 24 eggs inside. So each of the boxes or each of the slots contain just one single element, one single egg. Okay, so that's how arrays are. Arrays are like egg trays, and each slot in the array contains just one single value. That value can be a number. You can put a number here. You can put 100. You can put any number here. You can put boolean. You can put true. Okay, we can also put an object here, depending on how you want to put the name, values of the object. Okay, and then so these are different ways of representing an array. So for you to have once you have an array, this way you separate the values with commas, and with the help of commas, you are indirectly creating slots for each value, the way we have them in an egg tray. Okay, and you can put as many numbers of elements as you wish inside an array. Now, if this should be an egg slot, I mean an egg tray, we know that each of the slots have its own space where eggs are inserted. The same way we have it in this array here. This name here is maintaining its own space. This guy is maintaining its own space, and this guy is maintaining his own space, and this guy is maintaining his own space. And then this guy also has his own space. Okay, so one thing that arrays support is what we call array indexes. So every item in the array has a position, just as I've explained, like an egg tray. Every item has a slot where it can fit in. Okay, so and then not just that it has a position, each of these positions have numbers attached to them. Okay, so starting from the first one, this is the first position, the number attached to this is 0. So arrays assign indexes from 0 to infinity to the last element. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Okay, this is 5 elements, but the last index is 4. So if you want to have an operation with any element or a member of this array, we can identify them with their indexes. So let's say we want to get first student. Console.log. The first student would be, we put the name of the array, and then we have the box before this name, and we'll put the index of which of the elements that we want, which of the members we want to print out. So this is 0, print out 4. If we put 2, so this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and so on and so forth. So this is how arrays can be manipulated. This is how you can work with arrays in JavaScript. So you can use you can have different items in an array. Your array can contain different items depending on the functionality and use case you are trying to build. All right. So we have what we call array methods, and also we have what we call array properties. Okay, so array in JavaScript is an object, is treated as an object. Remember what I told you guys in the last class about objects. So what are objects? Objects is a way of representing items that have very close properties or related properties. Okay, let's say a car can be represented as an object, and inside the object we have properties like name, model, number of wheels, and these are properties. And you can also have methods like start, stop, and all those stuff. These are methods. I explained this in the last class, so you can look at the video for the last class. You can look at that video, you can watch that video to understand object method and object properties. I think the last two classes, right? So now we have okay, so now we have an array, and an array is seen as an object in JavaScript. So what it means is that somewhere behind the scene, each time you create this, you create an object. And what it means is that this object has properties and methods. So whenever you create an array, JavaScript behind the scene creates an object. Okay, so with this, you can access, there are different methods that JavaScript adds to this array whenever you create it, to the object representing this array whenever you create it. So whenever you create an array, JavaScript creates an object behind the scene, and that object contains some default properties of this array. Something like the length of the array. The length of the array represents the number of items in this array. Okay. So if you want to know the length of the array, say console. Okay, let's say, let me save it somewhere. Say var total number. That's equal to students. That's the name of the array. Remember how we access object properties in JavaScript? We use the dot uh, symbol, and then we write the name of the property. So JavaScript creates a property known as length for this array. Whenever an array is created, create a property known as length, and this length literally means the number of elements in the array. So if you say console.log total number, right now you can see 5. If we add more elements to these and say Amara, we have this, we have 6. See, so another element, let's say Victor. So you have 7. Another element, let's say Favor. So we have 8, so on and so forth. If you remove them, say remove some of these, run it, have 3. So as the number of elements are being added or removed, the length property of the array is also being adjusted. Okay, so remember what I said, whenever you create an array, JavaScript behind the scene creates an object, kind of an object that models this array. This object contains the property of this array and methods that you can use to manipulate this array. Okay, so let's say that we want to change the element of an array. Okay, for instance, we all know that the second element of the array is Ada. Let's say we want to change it. We want to put another name there to replace the Ada. So what we'll do is I will do students, and then this is the array, this is the element part of the array that we want to change. The index of that array is 2, and the name here represents the name of the array, and this is the index. So we're going to assign a new value to it. You can say success, then run it. So when we run this, you can see right here student.2. We've not yet changed it in this line. So remember I told you JavaScript interprets or runs code line after line. So it runs the first one before the second one, the third one. So once it executes this, it comes here, look for student, the index of 2 is student, and is Ada. It will change it. But when it comes to this line, this line would change the value here to success. So if you try to log out the value of success to student 2, student with index 2 here, you would get a different value. So that is now success instead of Ada, right? So that's how it works with arrays, manipulating the value of an array. Okay. So another thing is that you can also add a new element to an array without going to the adjust it at this point. You can add a new element to an array from a different angle. So somewhere along as you're writing your code, if you want to add new elements to the array, you don't need to actually hard code them into this line of code here. You can do it somewhere else. Okay, so if you want to add a new element to an array, just remember the name of the array is very important. And then we use a method in an array. Remember, I told you that whenever JavaScript sees an array definition like this, it creates an object for that array. And that object contains properties like length, representing the name, the number of elements in the array. And it also has methods like push. Remember when we were treating JavaScript methods, we discussed how to call methods or functions. For methods or functions which belong to that uh, object. And if you want to invoke the method of an object, you use the name of the object, use dot, and then you call it like a function because it's a function. Okay. So some functions, some methods accept parameters, some don't. Right. So this push is a method defined in the object that JavaScript created for this array. All right. And inside this, we have it expects a parameter, and that parameter is a new value you want to add to the end of the array. Remember, it can only add it to the end of the array. Okay. So let's say we want to add Samuel. Then we'll run this. Remember, the length initially here was 8. If we run this, it's still 8. Why is it still 8? Because we added this value after the line that returned the length of the array. So we've already checked the length, and when we come to this place, when we check the length at this point, it's still 8. Then we added a new element at this point. So for us to get the new length, we have to check for the length again after the line of code that added to the array. So let's say var total2 is equal to the same way. Let's copy this. The same way, put it here, paste it. So instead of plugging the first total, let's plug in the second total. Now we can see 9. So you can do this as many times as you want. You can add as many times as you want according to the need of your application. You can say then done. It should be 9, 10, 11 now. I see it, right? So you can play around with these methods and look at how they work. Okay. So we can also add to the beginning of an array. So remember, push adds to the end of the array. All right. So for instance, remember that we have the first element of the array here to be Paul. If we do console.log, the first element, remember I told you it has index 0, student 0. If we run it, you get Paul here. Okay, so if we want to add another element here, remember the last one was at the end here. I added it at the end here. That's where it was added. Let me log out the array itself so you can see it yourself. Look at the array itself. You can see how it works now. The last element was added. This one, Sam, was added to the end, and then Ben to the end and down to the end. So this time I want to add at the top. So we use the array method known as shift on shift. Student dot on shift, and shift this way, and let's add data as the first element. So when we run this, you can see Peter is now the first element. I see it. Peter is now the first element of this array. So if you have any question, please can drop it on the comment section and I'll answer them. So we can also remove the last element of an array. We have a method that removes the last element of an array. So let's try out that method. Is known as pop. So let's do student dot pop. Whenever you call this, it doesn't take any argument. Whenever you call it, it will just remove the last element. So when we run this, Dan will no longer be in this array. That's it. Let's remove that. Remove the last element of an array. That's what that method does. Okay. So we also have a method to remove the first element of an array. It's known as shift. Shift. So let's try shift. Students dot shift. What's the first element currently? First element is Peter. So if we run it, Peter is no longer here. That is has been kicked out. Right. So uh you can also loop through an array, right? We know our while loop, we know our for loop, and we know our do while loop. Okay, so you can view the loop, let's say with while loop. Remember how loops work? Loops will keep running until you put a condition to stop it. All right. So if we're using a for loop, the first thing we do is that we define the starting point as zero. Let's start from zero, and then we define a condition. I is the counter, remember. So if we define a starting point of I, it starts from zero. So once the loop runs after the first time, the value of I will be incremented. Okay, so this next thing we have to write is the condition. Okay, as long as I is less than students dot length, and I'll explain this to you. Then we also have to write uh, a statement that will be incrementing the value of the I each time the loop runs. So what we're doing here is that okay, we are saying we're declaring the starting point to be zero because we want to loop through the elements of this array. So I want to start from zero. We will know you read array elements using the indexes. So without the index of an array, you can't read that array. So we're looking for a way to read all the elements in this array without necessarily uh, without any stress, like doing it straight up. So what we'll do is that because we want this array to run only when we still have some element left. So when we read the last element, there is no point of the array running. Okay, so one way to do it is that okay, since we are starting from index zero, so if the first time the array will run, it will use index zero to run, and that will be making reference to the first element. Then we want it to work in a way that okay, after the first loop, add one to that index. So because once one is added, it moves to the next index, and then the same thing moves until it gets to the last one. The reason why we are saying I less than student of length is that if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is you have 10 elements here. The array dot length, the length is 10. Okay, but remember we are comparing this index to the length, and remember the last index will be index 9. If we do index 10, it will throw an error because there's no element with index 10. The reason is that array indexes are assigned starting from 0. All right, so with this now, once we are running the last element of the array which has index 9, that is I will be 9. So we check is I less than 10 because the length is 10. Yes, it's less than 10. We're going to run for this last one. Then when we are done, I will be incremented to plus 1, that is I will now be 10, and student's length will now be 10. So automatically we have gotten to the end of the array. That's what it means. So with the help of this condition, the loop will terminate from there. So we can let's log out this. Let's do console.log. So students, then we put I. So when the array runs for the first time, this I will be equal to 0. The second time it will be incremented by 1, it will not be equal to 1. This is how it will keep running until we get to the end of the array. So let's run it and see. So this is how the elements of the arrays will be printed, starting from the first one. This is where it started to the end. So you can also try out other kinds of arrays, like for each. We can also try out while loop and then do while loop. There are different kinds of arrays that you can try out, and you see how it works. Okay, so I think we'll stop here. In our next class, we'll look at more advanced concepts about JavaScript arrays. Okay, so do well to revisit this video and keep yourself updated. If you have any question, you can drop it in the comment section. I'm going to attend to your questions. All right. So thank you so much. And if you have not joined our community, do well to join our community. We'll have the link on the description of this video at the end of this video. Thank you so much. And also remember to share this video to your friends and invite them to join us each time we're having our classes, so that if any one of them needs the knowledge we're sharing, they can also partake. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you till our next class. Bye.